TCI is brought to you by Spendthrift's Malibu Moon, AP Indy's leading sire on the track 7 years running and leading sire in the sales ring in 2016 with a $240,000 yearling average.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Breeders' Cup. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. Well, Joel, we have a lot of winning your ins to talk about, but before we do, we need to recap last weekend's races. You know, we saw the last 3-year-old race for colts, and that was the Pennsylvania Derby. You know, we had our Derby winner in there with Nyquist, and we also had Exaggerator in there, but there was another 3-year-old that stole the show. Yeah, kind of a late coming 3-year-old for Chad Brown. His name is Connect John. You see him here a little late switching leads. I think he kind of loafed once he made the lead there. May have pulled himself up a little bit. Gunrunner ran a huge race, come from off the pace, be that wide, finish down the middle of the track. I thought he was going to get it done, but you see Connect really re-engages here, gets the victory. A big colt, son of Curlin, now headed towards the Breeders' Cup Classic. The fact that he's such a late developer, John, has a 1.25 mile type pedigree. He's an interesting horse in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but really, I think more long-term with Connect. Next year as a 4-year-old, I think he'll be a top colt. All right, well, let's move now to the Distaff division, and let's talk about the Cotillion. You know, we had Songbird in here, and this horse is just decimating this field. I mean, she is just so good, Joel. It is scary how good she is. We can just let the tape roll here and just watch this as pure beauty, man. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Karina Mia had a tactical advantage. We talked about it last week. Her going to the lead and having some quality, would she be able to spurt away at a track like Parks that plays the speed? Songbird made the lead without even switching to a right lead, just loafing around. You see Mike Smith easing up here, just a galloping win. And on the numbers, this was her best race. This was her breakthrough race. They weren't giving her a lot of credit for being on the lead, which, you know, I'm a Ragozin guy. That's very typical. This is a big performance for Songbird, and you saw how easily she won there. So to me now, she goes in that Distaff as a monster player, getting done with her East Coast swing, heading back to the West Coast. Well, let's see if you give her some credit in the TCI top 5 in the Distaff division. Let me see where she lands on that TCI top 5. Let's talk about the TCI top 5 for the Distaff, John. Let's walk over here to our monitor. You see here at number 5, we have Forever Unbridled, the Dallas Stewart Charge. I think she's in career form right now. Thing I like about her is her pedigree screams 1 1/8, and she's a closer. So while closers may not do as well typically shipping into Santa Anita, if the pace is contentious, she's a horse that I think, based on her form, you have to have in the top 5, and she'll be, I think, the horse to beat this weekend in the Beldame. At number 4, John, I'm going with Carolina, another filly on the East Coast. Been a little inconsistent. I think she's actually better than maybe the respect she gets from most people. I think there's a lot of talent with Carolina, but she's a quirky filly. You don't always see it. You know, on Belmont Stakes Day, I can think, you know, she was up close to a top pace there. I thought she had a big opportunity to corral the division that day. You know, coming off her impressive La Troyenne win, she did not deliver. She was up close to a fast pace, faded late, but I think on her best day, Carolina's the type of horse that should love Santa Anita. I think she could deliver an upset in the Distaff. That's why I have her in the 4 spot. And number 3 for me, John, looking at TCI top 5, Stella Wynn, a local filly at Santa Anita. I think the top 3 is going to be very familiar, and pretty much any analyst is going to like our top 3. I think Stella Wynn you have to have in there. She's the closer at 1 1/8 that has a legit chance to win this now as a 4-year-old. We'll see her this weekend, and she'll be facing our number 2 horse, which is Beholder. I have Beholder at number 2. Last year I would have had her by far at number 1, but I don't think she's the filly to beat this year because I don't think she's in the top form. You know, when I look at her prior years, to me, Beholder's not the same horse this year. I could be wrong about that. She certainly has the opportunity to prove me wrong this weekend and show that she should be number 1 in this division. And we talked about number 1, Songbird, the filly we just talked about, John, ran her best race last time out in the Cotillion. I think there's more to come with Songbird. I think she deserves that number 1 spot. So for me, Songbird's slightly better than Beholder. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any arguments there. I mean, Beholder last year was just so good. Yeah. Songbird, Joel, is just running so well right now. I don't think you'll see much arguments there by any means. Yeah. We got 7 winning your ins to talk about, and man, we're going to have to run through here. You know, one of those is the Joe Hirsch. I got 1 horse to talk about in there, Flintshire.
Next race, Flintshire.
All right, let's move on then. Let's talk about the Vosburg. You know, we have the leading sprinter on the East Coast that's going to be in action. Of course, that's AP Indy. Man. Tell me, do you think he gets it done?
AP Indian is in tremendous form, John. The thing about him that's interesting is he'll face some legitimate pace pressure here. XY Jet he's a real deal, John.
Yes.
He had obviously a chip early in the year, but he's coming back. He's working fast. I swear, you look at Jorge Navarro, every time you look up, this guy's got a leading sprinter. I think he's going to be sitting on go, and he'll at least make AP Indian rate and finish, or if not, I think he's got the ability to maybe run him into the ground. Could set it up for another horse at Belmont from off the pace. So a very good race. You throw Holy Boss in there, that's a lot of quality speed going 6 furlongs. So a race to pay attention to this weekend.
All right, I'm going to throw one in here. It's not a win in your end, but it's an important race because we see Runhappy. He's a defending sprint champion from last year. Joel, this horse has not run since last year in the Malibu. Tell me, what do you think about his comeback in the Yak-Ak?
I tell you what, I know this, going a mile at Churchill, 1-turn mile down that long track, you know, sandier type surface in the fall time, that's a challenging track to be running 7/8 or a mile, 1 turn off a layoff. So there are other horses that aren't nearly as good as Runhappy. I mean, this isn't a quality. On class, he stands out. However, the way that track plays, this is a tall task, having to run 7/8, run a mile, a flat mile, you know, going around 1 turn at Churchill Downs. That will test him, and we'll find out if Runhappy, you know, if he comes up short, will they try to defend in the sprint? Because right now it looks like to me they're pointing for that dirt mile, and if they do run in the dirt mile, even if he wins this weekend, he's never been around 2 turns yet, so he's got to face that test too when he runs at Santa Anita.
Hey, and the dirt mile is no cakewalk this year. There's going to be a lot of good horses in there, so it's definitely not a gimme. Let's jump now to the juvenile fillies division. Let's talk about the Chandelier. We see American Cleopatra in here. Tell me, what do you think about this field that's running at Santa Anita?
My biggest takeaway is the void. Union Strike had that breakout performance at Del Mar Debutante. You don't see her coming back in here. It hasn't been on the work tab, John. Clearly something's amiss there. So now it reopens this division. I look at Champagne Room. It was basically, you know, dead heated almost for runner-up with American Cleopatra. They basically ran the same exact race behind Union Strike last time out in the Del Mar Debutante. So to me, both those fillies have pedigrees to handle 2 turns. Be interested to see which one actually excels more now getting around 2 turns.
All right, let's stay with the 2-year-old division. Let's talk about the Colts. We got the front runner stakes, and we see our #1 on the TCI top 5 back in action. Of course, that's Klimt. Tell me, do you think he gets it done in here?
Well, not this time. Proved himself last week. If Klimt wants to keep that #1 spot, he's going to have to prove himself this week. Straight Fire should get an easier lead here and a softer pace. Will he be able to kick on at Santa Anita where speed is very good, or will Klimt be able to get him going a mile and a 16th, which, again, when I look at Klimt, I see a leggy, rangy type tall colt. I think he's going to handle 2 turns, John, even though if you looked at his initial breed line, you might think, well, there could be some question marks whether or not Klimt is bred to be a 2-turn horse, but physically, I think he gets it done for Bob Baffert. All
right, let's talk about the Zenyatta. You mentioned it earlier. We're going to see Stellar Wind and Beholder rematch. I think Beholder's going. This is her 3rd Zenyatta. I think she's won it the last 2 years. This will be the 3rd time in here. Tell me, do you think that she turns the tables? Does she defeat Stellar Wind in here?
Well, both fillies obviously love Santa Anita. I will take Beholder's tactical speed, you know, turning back. Then Stellar Wind, who I thought, you know, the fact that she was able to go on the shelf after she beat Beholder really made me wonder, you know, why would you do that with the filly? It's only run twice this year and is really going to have 4 starts. I mean, if she runs tomorrow and then runs in the Breeders' Cup, might have 4 starts this year. Some question marks to me surrounding Stellar Wind, so I'll take Beholder in their tactical speed.
All right, and then of course the marquee race of the day for me anyway is the Awesome Again. You know, Joel, we see California Chrome in here. I know right now you have him in at #2, but Joel, he's training so well right now. He drew the 1 hole in there, and I know everybody said, hey, he's just going to squirt out like he did before. He's going to get to the lead, but Dortmund drew immediately beside him. Does that affect their strategy at all?
I think it's very interesting, the fact that Dortmund's going to be outside of him, getting blinkers for Bob Baffert. So Bob clearly thinks there's room for improvement with Dortmund. He hadn't worn blinkers in a long time. Matter of fact, when he went on that great run as a 3-year-old, it was with blinkers off. So now the blinkers go back on Dortmund. And we talked about how bad he washed out in the Pacific Classic. So if Bob has him on the game and thinks that, you know, a equipment change at this stage of the game is going to move him up, I think it's a very intriguing move. And I tell you what, it should put him more into the race. You know, he should be more keen. I think maybe that's the angle they're going for. And if he's able to go the lead and California Chrome has to come around, or if California Chrome breaks and goes and they get into some sort of speed duel, I just think that the outside position on Chrome is going to make things interesting in here. I think it's going to be a horse race. Remember, 2 starts back, California Chrome and Dortmund's coming off the layoff. They go down to the wire. Both of them run a 110 buyer. So a legit race. I think this could produce a similar finish with the 2 horses.
All right, thank you, Joel, and thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll recap all these winning your ends, and we'll launch a TCI Top 5 for the juvenile fillies.